Welcome to Seize the Mains Daily Answer Writing by Malhotra's IAS Academy. I'm Surbhi Sirdana and I'm taking this answer writing initiative for UPSC and State Civil Services mains from Monday to Friday at 9 pm. If you're new, you can download the timetable till May 3rd from link in the description below. Also, you can download the entire compilation of Season 1 from the link given in the description below. It will take you to our Telegram channel and from there you can download it easily. Moving on, it's day 55 of Seize the Mains, long way. And the topic for today is from GS paper 3, disaster and disaster management. Topics or questions from this area are very simple. As I display the question, keep a pen and a paper handy with you. As you understand the question, pause the video, frame the frame structure for your own answer and add value points or knowledge points that you know, write down them on a rough page of paper and then proceed on to watching the rest of the video and then write your own answer. See, examine the vulnerability of India to the earthquakes and propose short, medium and long-term actions to alleviate the risks associated. Answer in 150 words for 10 marks and send your answers to us to be evaluated by our experts entirely free of cost in the next 24 hours, that is by 9 pm of 27th April. So, what does this question mean? What is the demand of this question? The directive here is examine, but that's just the first part of the question. Examine the vulnerability of India to the earthquakes. This is the first part of the question and propose short, medium and long-term actions. Means you have to propose some actions. Now look at the word limit here. It has to be answered only in 150 words, means you cannot have two parts to your answer or you cannot have a very long answer. So the directive here is not that relevant. What we'll do is we'll ascribe first paragraph of our answer to the first part of this question and we'll tell that how and why India is vulnerable to earthquakes. So we'll ascribe that part and next we'll move on straight away to give the short, medium and long-term solutions. So here is your introduction first part. In the introductory paragraph itself, after the first introductory paragraph, we'll introduce more paragraphs and we'll tell that why India is vulnerable to earthquakes, what are the reasons. So here we'll talk about converging plates or the seismic activity due to movement of these plates and rising of Himalayas and all the factors that we can see for Deccan Plateau, for Himalayas, hilly areas, for Andaman and Nicobar Islands. What are the reasons for earthquakes in different parts of India? We'll see them in detail and we'll mention them in the introductory paragraph itself. So, to make it very clear, your introduction is just this much. The rest is the body paragraph which answers the first part of the question, but it has to be sticked along with the introductory paragraph itself. So, India is one of the hotspots for earthquakes, very true, as it lies at the boundary of two converging plates. Now, what are these? We'll see. It lies at the boundary of two converging plates. More than 60% of Indian area is vulnerable to earthquakes, causing waves, putting the lives of a large population at risk. Even though the threat is significant, the mitigation measures are low. So this briefly defines what is the status of earthquakes in India, and it also says that mitigation measures are low. So it also introduces our body paragraphs to the examiner that yes, we'll be addressing mitigation part also. The major reason for the high frequency and intensity of the earthquake is that the Indian plate is driving into Asia at a rate of approximately 47 millimeter per year, and that collision causes earthquakes. So this is your first part, where we are examining the vulnerability part of earthquakes. Here is the second, the Himalayan belt. What is the reason of earthquakes in the Himalayan belt? Then we'll see the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and then we'll see the Deccan Plateau. So in the Himalayan belt, collision between Indo-Austral or Indian plate with Eurasian plate and Burma plate with Java Sumatran plate. This collision causes lots of strain in underlying rocks, energy of which is released in the form of earthquakes. Now see, here at least 3 to 4 plates are mentioned and this converging boundary has been mentioned. So it is up to you. This is not a geography question, but when disaster management questions are there, if a question from earthquakes is asked, it is highly recommended that you draw those converging plates. You draw the structure of India or draw the plates that are associated with these areas. If that can be done, though this is a 150 words answer, if time permits, draw that diagram. If it doesn't permit, then just skip on that and try to write in points here. The next one is the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which has sea floor displacement and underwater volcanoes which disturb the equilibrium of Earth's surface. So this is the reason for Andaman Nicobar Islands. The third one is the Deccan Plateau. We are giving reasons for all kind of geographical features of India. So some earth scientists have come up with the theory of the emergence of a fault line and energy build-up along the fault line of the river Bhima or Krishna river near Latur and Osmanabad, Maharashtra. You know, the great African Rift Valley that we studied about, it is said that it extends to parts of Gujarat here. That is why, you know, a very disastrous earthquake was seen many years back in Gujarat in Latur. And there could be from time to time other minor earthquakes are also seen in this area. So this is the reason of earthquakes in Deccan Plateau, because there is a fault line there. Increasing population, and see, this is a general reason that we are giving here, that population is increasing, the carrying capacity of land is decreasing, or it is remaining the same, the population is increasing, and the kind of buildings that we are having. Unscientific land use and construction make India high risk land for earthquakes. So this is your first part of the answer, the examine part, as I told you. Now we will directly propose short, medium and long term actions to alleviate the risk associated. So what could be the short term measures? Short term measures can be preparedness, mitigation, having continuous drills, or identifying vulnerable buildings which are there right now. So it would involve identifying vulnerable buildings and planning for their occupant safety. Periodic drills can be carried out, especially in educational institutes or offices. So these are the places where people spend most of their daytime. So especially at schools, because most of the times children are not aware and children are very enthusiastic about learning such things. So periodic drills can be carried out in the short term. In the medium term, what we can do is retrofitting of weak structures in highly seismic zones. See, there are highly seismic zones in our country, and ironically there are very tall buildings or very old buildings standing at these places. So retrofitting of weak structures has to be carried out. Preparation of disaster related literature in local language with do's and don'ts for construction. Involve people by talking to them in local languages. In fact, if you can take their experience or learn from their experiences, is there any method that they know about, that should also be incorporated. Getting communities involved in the process of disaster mitigation through education and awareness. See, awareness is the best part here. Educating people and making people aware and forming communities, getting into societies, mohallas, or bringing people together from these small communities or societies, and then motivating them, making them aware that yes, this is an issue and an earthquake can arrive anytime, so you need to be prepared with all the mitigation and prevention measures. Networking of local NGOs, this is the best solution. In fact, as an IS officer also, you can implement this in your area, that you can involve a lot of local NGOs, especially people with NGOs with young population participation, NGOs which have participation from the local educational institutes. Such young people or such students are very enthusiastic to work for the society, to go and talk to people and make them aware of what are the disaster risks of their area. Now come the long term measures. In the long term, whatever the buildings that we are constructing now, they need to be earthquake resilient. That has to be there. We need to have building codes, that what are the parameters that need to be kept in mind before construction of buildings. So there is a need to decongest the cities which are most prone to earthquakes. See, urbanization in India that has happened till now, it was unplanned urbanization. Wherever jobs were available, wherever goods were available, people tried to settle around those places. So urbanization was not planned, and that increased the risk of such disasters in our country. Now decongestion of cities has to take place. The outskirts of cities also needs to be outskirts and outer circles. For example, this is the original city and this area is occupied already, or this area is, so the occupancy needs to extend, and that how will it extend? By promoting, by not supporting migration. And how will we stop migration? By providing jobs in all parts of the country, by providing amenities in all parts of the country, by promoting work from home culture and things like that, and having planned urbanization. The second one is reframing building codes, guidelines, manuals and bylaws and their strict implementation. Tougher legislation for highly seismic areas, especially the development projects that we carry out. So many times, you know, a dam is constructed, and after the dam is constructed, a very bad earthquake hits that area. This is very prominent as seen in the case of Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, especially Uttarakhand. So an earthquake hits later, and then the government gets to know that no, this wasn't supposed to be developed. So that mapping environmental impact assessment has to be carried out very efficiently for all these areas, for all the projects, whether they are coming from the government side or from the private sector side. That environmental impact assessment has to be there, and whatever step that we take, that has to keep in mind the seismic zone in which that particular place is lying. There is this seismic areas were updated a few years back for India. You need to keep that map in mind, and if you can draw it in your questions related to earthquakes and disaster management answers in mains, nothing better than that. So, making all public utilities like water supply systems, communication networks, electricity lines earthquake proof. You know, whenever an earthquake, whenever a place is hit by an earthquake, what happens? Your phones cannot be connected. All like optical fibers, they get damaged, phones cannot be connected, hospital buildings or you know basic amenities are not available to people. So that is a situation of total chaos, basic amenities are not available, people are fighting for their lives. So we need to have these things in place, these at least basic amenities need to be earthquake proof from day one itself, or we need to revamp the way they have been planned. So creating alternative arrangements to reduce damages to infrastructure facilities. So that can be carried out. These are the broad things that can be done in the short, medium and long term. I'm sure that if you have had a personal experience or you've heard about any experiences of people facing such disasters, you must have more points. Add them from your side. Disaster management is an area where you can give your suggestions also freely, because that is what your job will be about once you join the services. Now in the body paragraph there are two more points that in the long term measures. So supporting research and development with respect to the infrastructure that we have in India, with respect to the communities that we have in India, that support needs to be there for the research and development in various aspects of disaster mitigation, preparedness. Before the disaster comes, we can mitigate people, we can mitigate a disaster, that is decrease its effects whenever it arrives. Preparedness and prevention and post disaster management, which is most important, because this is where our systems fail. When disaster arrives, we are not prepared for it, it happens overnight and all our systems fail, they crumble, and then army has to be brought in or some other agencies have to be called in for help, and by that time most of the damage is done. So this needs to be carried out, research and development in this area. Evolving educational curricula in architecture and engineering institutions, basically whatever technical education that we are giving to architects of our country, to engineers of our country, that has to evolve with time, because zoning map has also changed. Many areas which were not in high risk zones are now in high risk zones, so educational curricula also needs to evolve accordingly. Now moving on to the conclusion part, that it is not the disaster but the lack of preparedness to disaster that kills. Disaster is a natural phenomena most of the times. But what we can do as human beings, from times immemorial, human beings have developed certain techniques to decrease the impact of disasters on their communities or on their lives. So that preparedness has to evolve with time, that has to be upgraded. The goal of emergency preparedness programs is to achieve a satisfactory level of readiness to respond to any emergency situation through programs that strengthen the technical and managerial capacity of governments, organizations and communities. Thus, disaster preparedness is one of the most vital component in disaster management. This is what we gave the solutions for. It appears to be a complicated conclusion. In a 150 words answer, most of the times a conclusion is not needed. What you can do is write just 1 to 2 lines of your own or give a way forward. So, way forward we've already given. This is in the second part of the question, what was demanded was way forward, measures for helping the situation, for making the situation better. So, in conclusion we can just say that it is the disaster preparedness, disaster mitigation which plays the key role in how we get affected by disasters in India, especially earthquakes. Okay, so this was about it. You can download the PDF for this presentation from link in the description below. Send your answers to us in the next 24 hours. Keep working hard and stay tuned to our channel.